Welcome to the Minimalist Educator Podcast, where the focus is on a less is more approach to education. Join your hosts, Christine Arnold and Tammy Musiałowski, authors of The Minimalist Teacher and Your School Leadership Edit, a minimalist approach to rethinking your school ecosystem, each week as they explore practical ways to simplify your work, sharpen your focus, and amplify what matters most so you can teach and lead with greater clarity, purpose, and joy.
Welcome to this week's episode of the podcast. Today's episode is extra special for us. We're giving you a little bit of a behind the scenes look at our upcoming new book. We are very excited to share with you what you can expect when reading the new book. So let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Minimalist Educator Podcast. Today, I am here with Tammy. How are you today, Tammy?
I am doing well, Christine. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Excited to get to talk to everyone about our project that we've been working on.
Yes. The timeline is finally here. I mean, we've been working through a timeline for a while, but now we're getting to that point where this little project is coming out into the world, and we're going to talk through some pieces of this piece of writing we did. Someone was asking me the other day about the writing process. And I was saying how we started it long ago. I think it was the end of 2022 or something like that. So it was a year-ish or something after the first book came out.
Was it that long, was it?
I think it was. It was end of 2022, but we let it sit there for quite a while because we weren't sure if we were going to kind of dig into this school leadership landscape. But then we did, and we smashed it out.
We did. So, yes, we're talking about our new book that is coming out. It is called Your School Leadership Edit, a minimalist approach to rethinking your school ecosystem. And its release date is November 17th, 2025. So if you're listening to that after this date, you can go out and grab your copy straight away. But by the time this episode airs, we should be able to do some pre-orders. If you feel like it should be available there for pre-orders. But we're really happy to see on the publisher's website that there is a preview of the book already available. So if you wanted to have a little look at a part of the book, it is there ready and available to preview already.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a nice little surprise to see that there. Our couple of intro chapters, which is, sets the stage for the rest of the book. One of the things that we do talk about in the intro chapter is how to read the book. Yes, we want you to read the prologue and the intro so you get the foundation, but then you can kind of pick and choose which chapters to read based on what your need is. So, and that's how I tend to read professional books sometimes, at least with audio. But then I always get the hard copy after because I'm I need to go back to that chapter because this piece really stood out to me. So it's not meant to be read necessarily front to back. You could, but you can, choose your own adventure, choose the chapters that speak to you. And really, we want this to be a guide for school leaders to make some changes, right? So kind of like the first book that we did, we're not asking anyone to do something crazy or new or anything like that, but really evaluate your systems and from that high level, school level, because that impacts everyday life in a classroom as well. So, it's really just evaluating what we do and how can we make it better and streamline and simplify for ourselves because, there's a lot of stuff that goes on in schools.
There is. And that was really the thinking behind the title, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Using the word edit and thinking about how when you edit something you're doing, you're really cutting down the pieces that aren't necessary or aren't quite right to create the best final product that you can. And we really like that thinking when it comes to school leadership, because there is so much that can be involved, but is all of it necessary for the best approach to your work and your life, really, as well?
Yeah, exactly. And in conversations that I've already had with some people about what the premise of the book is and who it's for, I've been sharing, because it's your school leadership edit, right? So when we think of school leadership, a lot of times we think of principals and assistant principals, and it's definitely for that audience, but it's really more than just for principals and assistant principals. It's anyone within the school parameters that has some kind of leadership role. So it might be a curriculum coordinator or an instructional coach or a teacher team lead or department head. So really anybody who's a representative of the school and helps make decisions for the school. And just so it's not really, and not that teachers can't read it, because obviously anyone can, but it's not specifically necessarily for just school leaders. So that's why school leadership is, it's more open than just the role that you're in, because we know that a lot of people have leadership roles within a school.
And beyond those that just have a title, everyone can be a leader in a way as well. Some of the things that we talk about, just how you carry yourself through your school day, can be so impactful on the people around you. So I think, everyone can be a leader in a certain way. But you're right. But probably the people who have some input in decision making is probably the target audience, really.
What should we dive into, Christine? Should we get into the framework for the strategies, or?
Yeah, I think the framework for sure. And then I feel like it would be interesting for people to hear a little bit of the different chapters as well.
Yeah, I think so too. Okay. So in this book, Christine and I, we love a framework, right? Because frameworks, it's a guide. We love an audit too. So you'll find audits in the book.
Audits everywhere. Yep.
Yes, because they're essential when you're evaluating systems. Like, you got to see what works, what doesn't. And so we created a 5 R's framework. In the first book, we have a triple P. So that's your kind of decision-making funnel around purpose, priorities, and paring down. And so that appears in this book as well. But because we're looking at big picture systems, we felt we need to get a little bit deeper into some of like how we can work through systems. So our 5R framework consists of reimagining, removing, repurposing, reinvesting, and refining. So in each chapter, you'll find strategies under those 5 R's for each of the editing chapters. So what do we want to talk about first? Should we talk about reimagining?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So reimagining is really just that, right? Like, you're taking a few moments to, I don't want to say utopian, but like, how could things be better and different? Doesn't have to be perfect. We're not talking about perfection. We're talking about what's happening in our school system, structures. What structures do we have? And so maybe this is a good point to just kind of talk about what the chapters are. So each chapter is about editing large systems within a school. So we have a chapter on communication, teacher support systems,
time use.
Family participation. So we did lots of brainstorming around, like, these are kind of the big picture items in a school. But then also we conclude with some structures for leadership, leader well-being, because we can't address all of this professional stuff without also talking about meeting the needs of leaders so that they aren't getting burnt out or feel alone or anything like that. So, so when we're talking about reimagining, we're looking at these big picture structures. Right?
We are. And I think it's an important one, because it would be very easy to fall into, well, this is how we've always done it in school
Yeah.
environments. And so reimagining is really trying to capture that idea of what could it be like. So we're really evaluating what's currently happening, what your school vision is, how you've been working in your systems, and then thinking about what it could be instead.
Yeah. Yeah. What's our next one?
Remove. Let's talk about removing.
Yeah, which I think might be, it seems like it would be the easiest because it's like, well, let's just not do that anymore. But we have a hard time generally as humans letting go. We just do, right? The consensus is that we add things on. We want to do more. We sometimes think more is better or bigger is better, but there's research that says that's not the case. And so let's think about subtracting, doing less. No, that doesn't necessarily mean the quality changes, right?
No.
Probably your quality gets better if you're removing the extraneous distractions and whatever is in the way of doing something really well within the school. And so just in some of the schools that I've been visiting recently, I'm seeing that so clearly because there are so many things that clutter spaces. Like mentally, I've had teachers crying with me because they are just so overwhelmed by all the things, like everything. And bottom of the list is often students, right?
Aww.
So it's not so much about there's things going on with students, but for the most part, it's like, okay, reports, I got to write reports and progress reports or, right before that. And I have to learn all curriculum and these programs, and I don't know how to, there's a lot of that. So that full piece of the edit process should be taken really seriously.
Absolutely. And I think it parallels really nicely with the triple P in the first book, thinking about the paring down. I think there's a really nice parallel there between the two of what are the key things that you need to keep, but what then can you get rid of that is not helping you? Because there are aspects of the work that we do that are redundant and unnecessary. And so you do really need to have a rethink about that.
Yeah, most definitely.
And next up, we have repurposing.
Yeah. I like this one. It makes me think of going to a thrift shop and finding somebody's old stuff, and you're going to make a new thing out of it. It just, it makes me think of somebody else's junk is someone else's treasure or whatever that saying is. We're not necessarily doing that, but that's what I think of, right? And it is kind of the process because you're like, well, what is the thing that we're doing that kind of works and has some good pieces to it? But how are we going to repurpose it for, another thing or in a different way? And so, and sorry, I'm going to tangent here as I often do, but it sometimes it's hard to separate out some of our 5 Rs, right? Because in the repurposing, you're doing some rethinking. You're going to be doing some refining. So there is a lot of crossover there. But the repurpose is what's right in front of us? And how are we going to make this into something that, it was supposed to be for this, but now we're going to make it for this, which is very creative, I think.
It is for sure. It is. But I think, I like that analogy of the thrift shop because it's so true. We do have things that can be utilized. We might not be utilizing it in the best possible way right now. So how can we think about this again and repurpose it for something that's going to be more helpful?
Yeah, for sure.
And then next we have reinvest, which is not just about money. It can incorporate that, but it's not just about money. It's also about time spend, cognitive effort spend, all of that can be reinvested to be more targeted, intentional.
Yes, absolutely. I think, we're in a business of people. And so, just in current role and things that go on, I think about what's going to be the best reinvestment, often of my time, because I work for different entities and everybody's systems are different. And so I've had to learn a lot of different systems and documentations. So I went through like a time reinvestment like a month ago because it was doing my head in. So I had to evaluate how my time was getting spent and my energy. So that was very helpful. And I did feel like literally there was a weight lifted from my shoulders after I just kind of sat down and determined that, you know what, my enemy was my Google Calendar. And so I needed to reinvest in the paper pencil. I had to just stop putting tasks, and it was hurting my eyeballs, hurting my brain. So I'm like, you know what? I gotta let my brain exercise in a different way again and get hand to paper. So that reinvestment was worth it because I feel a lot better.
It's so funny that you said that because I've gone back to a bit of paper and pencil to-do lists as well. Isn't that funny?
Thank you. And I mean, I bought some colorful pens, which
that always helps. New stationery always helps.
Yeah. It was fun. It's been a fun process. I don't really have a rhyme or reason to the colors I use at the moment because I just grab what's there. But it does, yeah, it's really helped my brain just redoing that whole structure. So, yeah, I like that.
Absolutely. And then our final R is refine.
Yes. So this is kind of one where I think we can get caught in it because here we're talking about reflecting on and tweaking what exists, similar-ish to the other 5 R's. But we can get caught in cycles of too much reiteration or too much refining. And this might come in, personality types can come into that. So we do have to be careful a bit, I think, in this refinement, because again, we're not talking about perfection. We're talking about refining and revising so that just those little tweaks, and we can keep finding those little tweaks forever because there's always something. So this one is, just that last bit of refinement to make sure things might start with a smooth start or an easy transition. But let's not get caught up in overextending the refinement.
I think that's a really, really good point because you could edit forever, couldn't you? As we say. So, yeah, but that focus on like good enough, like this is a minimum viable product. This is good enough for now. We can have a longer term goal to refine what we're doing again next time on the next cycle or whatever it might be. But yeah, a good balance between refining so that systems and procedures work well, but without putting that expectation on yourself that it's got to be refined to the point of perfection, because that's not necessarily the best spent energy.
Yeah, definitely. And then it just added stress.
Exactly.
We don't need that.
Exactly.
Don't need it.
I've got examples popping into my head right now, but that's okay. We don't have to go to examples.
That's another episode.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we were just talking a little bit before we jumped on to record about the connection with our 5 R's with the idea of unlearning. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, Tammy? Because I think that's a really good thing to point out while we're talking about the 5 R's.
Yeah. We do talk a little bit about unlearning and rethinking in the intro chapter based on ideas from the research of Dr. Adam Grant. And it's funny because his work is so logical to me, right? Like he does all this extensive research on, multiple things, but some of the things that just really stuck out to me, and I think it's the book called Rethink or something, or Think Again. Think Again is what the book was. So this leans into our idea of, reimagining, rethinking with a different approach to school. And so we've been doing school, for centuries, and it really hasn't changed that much. So there's lots of educational memes and things that come up where it's like, here's all the ways your iPhone has changed in the last 10 years. Here's all the ways that your computer is different from the last 10 years. But a classroom essentially looks the same. And from like 100 years ago. And that is shocking to me because we're talking about people that we serve in schools. We're not working with the same generation of people that we were 100 years ago. Like things are just different. And like, yes, people essentially are the same, but also not. Like there's just different ideas about how to parent. There's different ideas about what school could be, but then we always revert back to this traditional model. And I mean, I kind of understand why, because there is a fear in change. But why are we not spending more time unlearning and rethinking things that we know don't work? We know it. We know it. Lots of new research about, around psychology and behavior and classroom systems and instructional practices that we know, well, it's researched. And so there's evidence to show, this is kind of the direction that we need to go. And yet we don't do it. Or, I mean, I shouldn't say not everyone's tapping into that, because there are pockets where, yes, there's some really great innovative schools, but why isn't it bigger picture? Like, why are we not spending more time unlearning things that have been ingrained in us? I guess that's hard. It's hard to do, right? It's so tricky.
It is. It is tricky. Definitely.
We did manage to get a lot of thoughts in this book about quite a few things. I mean, we probably could have kept writing a bunch, but
as you always could.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, that's an important point to make. To just, yeah, like we said before, we don't want people to do like brand new everythings. Like the title says, rethinking what's going on in your school's ecosystem. And we define a little bit what that means in the book, because it is a lot. And will it change? I don't know. Right? I mean, maybe not in our careers.
Yeah.
And
we can
again,
hope. We can hope.
Yes. Certain parts, again, like every community is different. There's definitely some innovative approaches. I should lean into those that kind of serve as a model or place to look for some inspiration when we're trying to kind of work through all these big things, because we are looking at some heavy structures with some complex components. And yeah, I don't know. I think the book will give people a lot of things to rethink about. That's my hope too. Yes.
So when you think about planting a seed or like helping people through, which chapters in particular do you feel like will be have some really good takeaways for people? Obviously, we hope the whole book, but are there any that stand out to you as feeling like they would have some really good points for people?
Yeah, the expectation chapter really always kind of, because it's something I talk about with people all the time in different aspects of like, how do we even know if people know what the expectation is?
Yeah.
Right. And That might be a 5-year-old and that might be a teacher and, it might be your assistant principal or whatever. But there's a lot of layers to making sure that people understand and are clear about expectations for so many things in a school. And there can be a lot of confusion. There can be a lot of just like unknowing, right? Like I didn't even know that was a thing because it hasn't been communicated to me or clearly, or I missed it or something,
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that one really stands out to me the most. But I mean, it's hard to choose because like time is always an issue, communication is always an issue. But yeah, expectations. How about for you?
Well, I think through the process of writing the time chapter and thinking about it, I've actually tried out a bunch of the strategies that we talk about. So I think that has actually had the most direct impact on my work because I've actually tried to use as much of that as possible. So I think for me personally, the time chapter has been really impactful, thinking about like really auditing, as we say, we love an audit, really auditing how you're using your time and considering, is it best meeting what you need to be doing in your job, I think that's a huge one for people who work in leadership positions because you could so easily go off track in endless amounts of ways with how your time is spent. So I think there's some really, really good nuggets in there for people. And I'm hoping, like we did a lot of research and reading around well-being for the well-being chapter. So I feel like we've got some interesting thoughts and reflections in there for people that I don't think is necessarily top of people's minds when they're thinking about leadership roles, is how to maintain their well-being. I just don't see evidence from peers that people are spending a lot of time and investment in considering that part of their work. So I'm hoping that is going to be helpful to people as well.
Yeah, I think it will. Yeah. On the website, you were talking about some of the strategies you've tried around time use. We do have some digital downloads that are on the publisher's website. So there is one for that chapter around time auditing. And so each chapter has a digital resource that you can use to help with, just as you're reading a chapter, you can use the tool alongside reading the chapter. That is really resourceful of Rutledge to put that on there for people as they're reading to have these extra resources. So it was kind of fun putting together those resources just to think about the best way to present that to readers so that it's helpful, useful, and something that people can like use again and again or share with their colleagues. So
yeah,
I'm excited.
I agree. Like it, because, obviously when you're writing, you can get a bit theoretical sometimes. So to actually think about a practical tool to use that would be helpful to people was a great exercise for us to go through.
Yeah. And I'm looking forward to hearing how people use those. And, we can go through a bit of refinement as well. So if people have feedback on some of the tools, we can always, make version 2 or whatever so that it's a little bit better for people's use. But yeah, I think those will be helpful for people as they read through. I think we talked about this longer than we thought we were, which is totally fine. Yeah, I'm interested to hear what people have to say about the book as they start reading it, what the feedback is, anything. I'm interested to hear what people have to say. So,
and you'll drop in the show notes the links to the website where people can have a look at the preview and pre-order and order and so on.
All those things, yes. Well, thank you, Christine.
Thank you.
Talking. Yeah, this was nice to talk a little bit about the book contents since I feel like we haven't really talked about it since we sent it off and now it's in printing mode. So it was good to revisit some of the the bits that are coming out.
Exactly. Very excited for people to have a look.
Yeah, same. Thank you.
This episode is sponsored by Plan Z Education Services, supporting educators with forward-thinking professional learning that puts both student impact and teacher wellness at the centre. Driven by a vision to teach less, impact more, they help educators find purpose, prioritise what matters, and simplify their practice. Learn more at planzeducation.com.
Thank you for listening to the Minimalist Educator Podcast. Join Christine and Tammy and guests again next time for more conversations about how to simplify and clarify the responsibilities and tasks in your role. If today's episode helped you rethink, reimagine, reduce, or realign something in your practice, share it in a comment or with a colleague. For resources and updates, visit planzeducation.com and subscribe to receive weekly emails. Until next time, keep it simple and stay intentional.